Time for an oil change? Head to Jiffy Lube. We've got you covered. We've also got you covered when it comes to oil changes, thanks to Pennzoil Synthetic Motor Oil, getting you back on the road in a jiffy. Jiffy Lube. Leave worry behind.
Tom Brady chugged a beer on national television last night. Or did he? Oh. An Around the Horn investigation. Let's go around the horn.
They do that game in Times Square.
It's Around the Horn, the show of competitive banter. Here's Tony Reali.
NFL free agency starts tomorrow, but why start tomorrow when you can start today? Kirk Cousins will meet with the Vikings first. It will come with a reported 3 years, $84 million fully guaranteed offer. Guaranteed in full, not a sentence said with an NFL contract often. The $28 million per would be the highest per in NFL history, and that is a sentence said very often, basically every new deal. We have Keenum to Denver, Bradford to Arizona, Bridgewater to Jets, Brees staying with New Orleans news as well, but we have to start with Cousins. Is Minnesota making the right play, Mina? And does fully guaranteed make this a more sound decision or less?
I like the deal for 2018, though if I have to hear the phrase, you Vike that, one more time today, I might change my mind. Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback, Tony, but one thing we know about him is that his production depends on the talent around them. We saw him that in Washington in the final year when there were a lot of injuries, his QBR dropped 16 points. Now, in Minnesota, he will be surrounded by talent. It's a great situation. However, in 2019 and 2020, some of that talent is going to go away because of how much they're paying him, and his performance could drop. So I like this now as a win move, or I like this as a win now move, but beyond that, I'm not so sure.
Mm-hmm. Woody Page, how about you?
Oh, I like it for the 3 years that you know who's your quarterback going forward, that they are going to reference that by getting rid of Bridgewater, Bradford, and Keenum. So it's really not as much of a cost factor as people might believe. And I think when you do surround him with great offensive talent, unlike what he had in Washington, that I think that he is going to at least keep them on a level plane, that they have a chance at the Super Bowl once again, as they did this year. And really, I think it's a great win-win for him to go there, play indoors. He's a Midwestern guy, and it's going to be a good win for the Vikings because they get a guy that's a quality quarterback in the top 10.
So you like that. Okay, I get it. But you said not as much a cost factor. We're talking about $28 million per, which is the highest yearly salary with no bonus included. And we're talking about fully guaranteed for the life of it, the $84 million. And you don't think that's a cost factor? KB, how about you?
It is a cost factor. $84 million guaranteed for a quarterback who's never won a playoff game, for a quarterback who got into the playoffs without ever beating a team with a winning record, for a quarterback who could have gotten into the playoffs another year but didn't because he had a poor game at home, for a quarterback who's never thrown for as many as 30 touchdowns in this league, for a quarterback who one year had Pierre Garçon, Deshaun Jackson, and a healthy Jordan Reed who went to the postseason, still didn't throw for 30 touchdowns. Congratulations to Kirk Cousins and his agent for putting this deal together and playing the market for what it is. But I believe he was overpaid.
I want to say that you're telling us how you really feel, which is a good thing. And you've covered him in Washington for the last 7 years, I guess. So Frank Isola, hearing Kevin Blackistone there, did he convince you that Cousins got his money, but this might not be the best deal for Minnesota?
Kevin is a disgruntled Washington fan who lives too close to FedEx Field to see the end zone. If you go over the last 3 years, he's fourth in the NFL in passing yards, eighth in touchdown passes. And when you're going to play this game about never won a playoff game, need I remind you, Nick Foles won a Super Bowl. Blake Bortles played in an NFC Championship game. Case Keenum played in an NFC Championship game. The bar is going to be set really high, but I think that Kirk Cousins is better than those quarterbacks that I mentioned. So the money, it's a lot. I get it, but it's the going rate now for quarterbacks, and I like the move by Minnesota.
Can I ask you this? The fully guaranteed nature of this. I mean, that's such a wow in the NFL. Mina, can you see it changing the landscape for quarterbacks or even all players going forward?
I see it changing the landscape for veteran quarterbacks because what he had to do to get there, Tony, was bet on himself, numerous times, risk his body. Most players in the NFL can't do that. Now, you might see older quarterbacks doing it more often, which would be a dramatic change for the league.
Mm-hmm. Woody, how about you?
Well, enjoy it for the little time you have it because Rodgers is coming next. He's going to get more. Matt Ryan's going to get more. Every other quarterback, we've set the bar now at $30 million, and it's just going to continue to
But the guaranteed nature, KB, you see that as a landscape changer as well?
I don't see it because a guaranteed contract in the NFL has a different impact on the roster than it does in some other sports, and so that's why you haven't seen it. That's why you see people getting their money up front and not guaranteeing contracts for the life of them.
Okay. And Frank, last word.
Well, we don't bat an eye when these baseball players get these long-term deals. Same thing with the NBA. So the guaranteed money doesn't concern me because it's only 3 years. Kirk Cousins can stay healthy with that good team that they have in Minnesota and that defense for 3 years. It's a good investment.
Right. So that's the difference between 3 and 84 guaranteed versus 7 and 140 million or whatever it is for Stafford, Derek Carr. Let me ask you this question. Gut check right now. Who would you rather have next season? Kirk Cousins or Case Keenum? Because Woody Page, you're getting Case Keenum. Broncos are going to sign him tomorrow. Rumored, reportedly, to be between 18 million, and 20 million per. So how does that move fit this team, Woody?
Well, the Broncos felt like that Cousins, because of the financial concerns, wasn't a good fit. Keenum is a much better fit. It's going to be less than half the money, 2 years instead of 3 years, so they can get out of it sooner. And they seem a lot further away from the Super Bowl, 3 years in Peyton Manning, and they haven't had but trash quarterbacks, let's be honest about it, since Peyton Manning retired. Well, when you think about it, Paxton Lynch didn't turn out as number one draft choice. Trevor Siemian looked like a seventh-round draft choice. Brock Osweiler came back and didn't do anything at all. They had to have a quarterback. Now they get that extra $10 million a year to surround him with a better offensive line, a tight end, a third wide receiver. Offensively, they got the defense basically in place. I think this is a grand move for them in terms of not getting Cousins because Keenum actually had a better year than Kirk Cousins, and I think his numbers will reflect well when he gets to Denver, and he's worked with Kubiak, who is Elway's number 2 man here, and they must like him because of Kubiak was the one guy that saved him off the scrap heap when nobody drafted him out of University of Houston when he set every college record known to man.
KB, I think we can sense where you're going here, but who would you rather have, Keenum or Cousins, going into next season?
I'd rather have Keenum, and not just because of the numbers, but most importantly, the numbers behind the dollar sign. I mean, it saves your team a whole lot more money for basically the same production. Now, obviously, Kirk Cousins has a larger resume when it comes to being a starting quarterback. But part of that is just because Case Keenum was in some ridiculously bad situations early in his career, and he made the best of an opportunity that fell into his lap because of injury, and might I add, won a playoff game in the NFL game, right, in spectacular fashion. So I think right now I'd rather have Case Keenum for the economy of my team.
Frank Isola.
Kevin is absolutely nuts. You'd rather take Kirk Cousins because we don't know if Case Keenum was a one-hit wonder last season. Now, we set the bar very high for Kirk Cousins because he went 11-3 as a starter. They made it to the NFC Championship game. But I like what Denver has done here. To me, John Elway wakes up every day thinking about one thing, championship, and he never seems to be satisfied with his quarterback. It's a win-now league in the NFL. He gives you your shot. If you don't come through, he's on to the next guy. And I like the fact that Case Keenum has proven himself from this standpoint. He's been in playoff games.
But do you sense that the Broncos are close, Mina Kimes?
I don't know if they're certainly not as close as Minnesota. Case Keenum was a better quarterback than Kirk Cousins last year, but he was in a significantly better situation. Kirk Cousins, I think, has been better over the course of his career. Now, is he $10 million a year better? I do not think so, which is why I like this move for Denver. However, what I don't like is it means to me that they are going to draft a quarterback and try to find their guy for the future. The problem is they have shown no ability to draft and develop quarterbacks over the last 5 years, and I'm skeptical they're going to find one this year, too.
Woody, there seems to be energy that the Broncos are close. I would posit they're not as close as people think. They only have one Pro Bowler on their entire roster, and that, of course, being Von Miller. Where is this team right now? They're not the team they were
on the positive side, they're closer than Mina's team up there in the far northwest, based on what they've done.
Know. Okay, fine, sure.
And if they can do what I said, if they can improve the offensive line and get a third receiver, I think this is a team that could compete for a wild card spot. Are they a Super Bowl team? No. Kansas City in that division is a lot closer than the Broncos and the Chargers. We saw them at the end of the year. So I think they're third best.
You know, you could have gone around the horn there. Are they closer than Mina's team? Are they closer than Kevin's team? Are they closer than both of Frank's teams?
I mean, they're closer than them.
But that would be the most boring conversation of all time if we were talking about those teams. Let's move on. The biggest guarantee in free agency that Drew Brees wasn't going anywhere. Even though the Saints missed that deadline, supposed deadline, Monday. 2 years, $50 million, 27 guaranteed is what's the reporting here. Kevin, let me ask you this. What position is New Orleans in now compared to Minnesota, who we just talked about, and Philly, who, of course, everybody's looking up at?
I think they're as good as those teams. They have as good a shot to get to the Super Bowl as those teams. And I like the signing for Drew Brees because you look last year with a running game, what he did. He only threw the ball 536 times. That's like the lowest in like maybe 10 years for him. He was only sacked 20 times. So they're keeping him clean and keeping him healthy. And if he can stay clean and healthy and you got Drew Brees with that running game and an improved defense, I think you got something.
Right, Sola?
Give him points for saying they kept the quarterback upright. I'm glad that he said that. Here's the thing about a guy like Drew Brees. 39 years old. He's got a Super Bowl in his back pocket already. He drove his team down the field for the go-ahead score. It took a miracle play to beat him, or else he would have been in the NFC Championship game. And maybe the Saints will use their first-round pick to get a quarterback late in the first round like Lamar Jackson and groom his successor. I like what New Orleans did right here.
Mina Kimes?
I like this move, and more importantly, I like the fact that New Orleans put themselves in a position where they could make this move, pay the veteran quarterback, because they've drafted so well. Last year, they had arguably the best draft in the last 10 years, and as a result, they could splurge on quarterback because they're spending so little elsewhere. I think they're neck and neck with Minnesota and Philadelphia, absolutely a Super Bowl contender next year.
And how about you, Woody Page?
$50 million is a bargain, and it's difficult to say that, but it is. I mean, they got a guy that at 39, who's the last 39-year-old to play in the Super Bowl? Peyton Manning. He won it. And
Tom Brady.
Tom Brady. So Tom Brady. I mean,
even more recent than Peyton Manning, yes. But you forgot about this year, and you forgot about last year, but okay, that's fine.
If 71 is today's 50, 39 is today's 31, if you will. I think it's
12
a great
is
deal.
now 11 for Woody Page. We're getting out of here. Thank you very much. Taking a break right here. Buy or sell in 4 minutes and 10 seconds. I actually timed this out because people were complaining I said 2 minutes.
The math is too confusing on this show.
State Farm, this is Bill.
It finally got me, Bill.
What's that, Rick?
The Clark Street crater, the mother of all potholes.
Oh.
Yeah, year after rim-wrecking year, it's tormented the people of this town. They try to fill it, but it always returns. It got me good.
But you know, State Farm's got you too.
You hear that? You ain't nothing!
You trash talking a pothole?
Yes. Yes, I am.
Go with the one that's here to help life go right. State Farm. Talk to an agent today.
Buy or sell.
Rockets 109, Spurs 93. A couple of things coming out of this one. The San Antonio Spurs right now are out of the playoffs. They are the 10th seed in the West on tiebreaker. They have a 20 consecutive year making the playoff streak. That's the longest in NBA history. That's now in danger of busting. But also, Pop says he's going to meet with Kawhi Leonard today to clear the air and see when he might come back to the team. Mina, how does that meeting need to go?
They need to get on the same page. Look, this season has been unspursy in a number of ways. Normally, this team is the Borg, right? If one person lifts their arm, they all lift their arm in unison. But this year, it's been mixed. I mean, less than a month ago, Popovich came out and said, I don't know if Kawhi's even going to come back this season. A few weeks later, we find out that's not true. There needs to be more consistency in their messaging and thinking, and that's what has to change, not just Kawhi coming back.
So who needs to swallow a little bit of pride here? Does it need to be Pop or does it need to be Kawhi Leonard?
Both. They both have to get on the same page.
Very, very diplomatic answer, but that gets you a mute. Woody Page, who needs to be swallowing the pride here?
It should be Leonard. I mean, you have to realize during this injury, he was in New York training at the NBA headquarters. Now he's training with staff members and ball boys. Why isn't he with the team, trying to be a part of this team, sitting on the bench? When Tony Parker is talking about, we don't know what's going on with him, and we don't think, Tony Parker did have the same injury. He's back on the floor. I think it's on Leonard's side to prove that he belongs back on the court with him.
KB, same question to you.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. This is with the players, not with Popovich. It's with Kawhi Leonard. And you know what? We've really liked this guy. Talked about the kind of personality he has. We're talking about a guy we know he can bring on the court. But this is a team game right now. And Popovich has always emphasized that. He needs to join.
And Isola?
Tony Parker reminded reporters yesterday that he's been to 8 conference finals, 5 NBA finals. It was a way of saying, I used to play with Tim Duncan. We didn't go through this stuff. And then he said, I'm hearing reports that Kawhi may come back. And it is what it is, which I think translated into French is c'est la vie. I think what he's trying to tell you is there's something not right here with the Spurs and Kawhi Leonard.
But isn't it also with Popovich? Wasn't Popovich leaking stuff to the media in the last month? I don't know when he's coming back.
They're clearly sending messages to the Kawhi camp that, you know what, we need you playing.
You know what?
Here.
Mina Khan, you're getting those points back. You're absolutely right. Both need to swallow the pride. We'll move on. Ovechkin 600. And are you buying that hashtag the Capitals thrown out there? 600 VI?
Don't get it.
Gladiator.
20th in NHL history to 600 goals. 4th fastest behind Gretzky, Lemieux, and Brett Hall. Wow. Kevin Blackistone, we'll start with you. This is Washington, D.C., and of course it's another accumulation of statistics. We know how you felt about that in the first segment of the show. Let's see if it applies for Ovechkin 600.
Yeah, well, this is totally different. I'm glad you brought that up because although Ovechkin doesn't have a playoff record to speak of, the fact of the matter is when Wayne Gretzky was piling up all those points in the NHL, that was when goals were coming like this. Now it's about half that rate, and this is the greatest goal scorer we've seen in this generation. It is amazing.
Frank Isola?
Kevin, you're too close to the Verizon Center to see the crease. Here's all you need to know. Sidney Crosby last month scored 400 goals. We don't think of Sidney Crosby with 400 goals. We think of him as 3 Stanley Cups. Unfortunately for Ovechkin, brilliant career, but the cup is the big thing.
It's the Capital One Center now, by the way, Frank Isola. By the way, you're dressed like a Bond villain today. This is an incredible look for you. Go ahead, Mina Khans.
It's the Brady look. This is incredible, and I like that we've moved past the place in the sports discourse where we're just screaming rings when we debate accomplishments. We can evaluate him by what he's done, which is incredible. However, when we are comparing him to Crosby, where there is a lot of equivalency in statistics, Crosby's 3 cups do put him over the edge, and it's something that matters when we make that comparison.
And Woody Page.
I'm going to give him a gold star, but let's talk about the other guys that have scored 600 goals. What do they have in common, Kevin, that he doesn't have? A championship. He still has time. He wants to play 6-7 years.
Got there.
And he said,
really,
at the end of his career.
Exactly.
If he actually, that's the point, is if he can do it before his career's over, then you stamp a mark of approval on him, and he's one of the all-time greats. He's Ernie Banks now.
That's not a bad thing. Ernie Banks is a Hall of Famer, one of the greats of all time. Ovechkin, I think everyone agrees, is a Hall of Famer, one of the greats of all time. It's stunning, that stat, where we did Gretzky, Lemieux, and Brett Hall, and Ovechkin. We'll move on. Buy or sell 3. We're going to get into the bracket. And I should say right now we're accepting your sacrifice into our tournament challenge on ESPN.com. The group name is Around the Horn, Mute This. Series of unfortunate alphabetic events, which didn't fit there, but that's what it is. You can sign up, beat our panelists, and get a Woody Blackboard for a show. Speaking of tournament, not reffing in this year's tournament after calling the Final Four last year is Ted Valentine. He says it's because of this when he turned his back on Joel Berry. Do you buy that, Frank? And if that's the case, does the punishment fit the crime?
I think that contributed to it. That's an obnoxious move by a referee. I think this is years of coaches probably complaining, but I do think all these games that you're going to play, here's a guy that reffed in the ACC tournament semifinal. You mean to tell me he can't do one tournament game? I find that hard to believe.
Yeah, I don't think the punishment fits the crime, which was incredibly immature. And this is coming from someone who turns off her phone when she doesn't want to have a difficult conversation. It is ridiculous, but come on. He apologized as well.
Woody Page?
Yes. He's worked 24 March Madness tournament games for years, and he's worked 4 Final Fours, in the final game, and the guy doesn't deserve to work a few games in the tournament, I think that's a tragic mistake on their part.
Yeah, I agree with what everybody said. You know what? I'd like to see a little transparency from the NCAA officials and see how they grade out these guys. And hopefully they do it like the NFL, and the best guys from the season move on to the biggest, most important games.
I know my grade. Kevin Blackistone. Orange holes for thee. Mina Khan, Kevin Blackistone. Showdown next.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I feel like I'm on top of the world.
Disclaimer, you will not be transported to the top of the world. In the unlikely event you find yourself at the Arctic Circle, seek shelter from the elements immediately to avoid frostbite and or hypothermia. Geico will not be responsible if you find yourself in a cave or crevasse with a lonely abominable snowman, who in all likelihood will force you to play games including but not limited to Go Fish, charades, Chinese checkers, or his personal favorite, Red Rover, send Yeti on over. Geico is not liable for any damages, either physical or emotional.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Mina Khan, Kevin Blackistone in Showdown mentioned it earlier. Bridgewater and Bradford deals. Teddy to the Jets. Sam to the Cardinals. Mina, whose fans should be more plus?
I got to go with the Jets. You know, the Bradford deal, he's in a division where he's probably not going to be competitive. Teddy, on the other hand, a lot of upside there. The Jets probably aren't going to compete now, but in the future, they have something to look forward to if he performs well.
Well, with Bradford, you're getting a guy who's already had 2 operations, the ACLs, and had to sit out because of another injury last year. And in Bradford, you get in Teddy Bridgewater, you get a guy who's young. You saw him explode onto the scene. Hopefully he's repaired. Hopefully he's the better quarterback, and you're getting him in.
Okay, so yes, right. 1 horrific life-changing surgery is fewer than 2 horrific life-changing surgeries. I agree with you both. We'll get the point split. We'll move on. Tom Brady on Colbert. Here it is, a beer-chugging investigation. We know Brady used to drink beer and chug beer. There's many stories about how good he was at it. We know he doesn't anymore, BB12. So when the beers came out, Colbert looks to the camera, off camera, and does a switcheroo. You saw that. Then one might be darker than the other. One certainly has a head. The chug also under investigation, because did he finish? KB, can you say without a doubt Tom Brady chugged the beer last night?
I cannot say that. I can't tell from looking at that. Where's the head on there? Where's the frothiness? You know what, Tom Brady? You want a real beer? Drive 4 hours north up to Stowe, Vermont, and get yourself a heady topper at the Alchemist Brewery.
I'm suspicious, and not just because Tom Brady's dressed like an international man of mystery there, but because of the switcheroo. Look, I don't know. It might have been a beer, but was it a real beer? Was it a gluten-free beer? I'm leaning towards something like that.
He's dressed like an international man of mystery or Frank Isola. Point, Mina Kimes gay. Mina Kimes, take your FaceTime.
All right, so we talked a little bit earlier about the Kirk Cousins contract, and I just want to get into it and say it is a big deal. Sure, it's probably only going to impact quarterbacks, but man, this hasn't happened before for a reason, which is not that the union didn't negotiate fully guaranteed contracts. It's that no player has taken the risks necessary to get there. And I salute you, Kirk Cousins, because at every turn, people told him not to do it. His own team maligned him, and yet he persisted, and it was rewarded in a big way today. It's big for the NFL.
Okay, so you think Kirk Cousins' deal is a big deal. That's why we started the show with it, Mina. All that information should have been in your first answer. We're on a 23-and-a-half-hour break. Madison Faulkner, thank you.
Hello, I'd like to deposit this to checking. Fate is a fickle master. What? The future is uncertain. Okay, and what's my account balance? The horizon is cloudy. I see a long, treacherous voyage filled with great peril. Look, can I just get a deposit slip or something?
A fortune bank teller. Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
I see a yellow-eyed serpent and a low APR.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.